You ever hit a wall? You know that feeling, right? Where the things that have always worked for you just stop. Sales start to dip, your performance flatlines, or that productivity system you swear by just completely falls apart. When you get stuck like that, pushing harder isn't the answer. Nope. What you need is to find a totally new place to push. So, let's figure out how to find that new spot. And hey, this isn't just you. This is a universal thing. This quote right here, it just nails that moment of truth we all face, whether it's in business, creative work, or just life in general. The old map doesn't work anymore. But the good news? Getting unstuck isn't about brute force. It's about finding the right leverage point. So this is the big idea from Dan Sheath's book, Reset. Picture your problem like this giant, unmovable boulder blocking your path. A reset fulcrum, well, that's like finding the perfect stick and a little rock to use as a pivot point. With the right leverage, you can move that massive thing with way less effort than you'd think. The real question is, how do we find these fulcrums?
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to dive into 3 really powerful ways to find your fulcrum. First, we'll sketch a map to see the waste you're missing. Then, we'll expose the one single bottleneck that's holding you back. And finally, we'll learn how to find the bright spots, the successes that are already there. And then we'll talk about the final step, how to apply a burst of force to really get things moving. Okay, let's jump into our first fulcrum. See, when you've been doing something the same way for years and years, you kind of go on autopilot. You develop blind spots. You stop seeing all the little time wasters and inefficient steps that pile up. So this first strategy is all about making the invisible visible by literally drawing a map of what's going on. Check out this incredible real-world example. A team at a hospital in Iowa decided to track a patient's entire journey through their radiology department. I mean, they drew every single movement, every stop, every little waiting period on a floor plan. The final picture was so tangled and chaotic, they nicknamed it a spaghetti chart. So when the staff looked at that messy chart, you could almost hear the collective aha. The waste was suddenly so obvious. So let me ask you, once they could actually see the whole process laid out like that, what percentage of the patient's steps do you think they were able to get rid of? Just take a guess. 91%. No, that is not a typo. By making a few simple and frankly obvious changes, like giving patients a drink they needed at check-in instead of sending them to another office to wait, they got rid of almost all of that wasted movement. It's just a brilliant example of how powerful it is to just see the problem clearly. And this wasn't just about making patients happier. This new efficiency meant the hospital could see 31% more patients every day. And that translated into an extra $750,000 in revenue annually. Let that sink in. $750,000, just unlocked by spotting the waste that was right there in front of them the whole time. You see an example like that, and you have to start thinking about your own world, right? Where's the spaghetti in your process? If you actually mapped out your customer's journey, or heck, even your own morning routine, what hidden waste do you think you'd find? Okay, on to our second fulcrum. This one isn't about finding lots of little problems. It's about finding the one thing that's holding everything else up. We're talking about the bottleneck, that single point that controls the speed of the entire system. You want to see a masterclass in handling a bottleneck? Look no further than the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. I mean, they are legendary for their speed, right? They serve a car nearly twice as fast as their biggest rivals. But you know what? It wasn't always that way. They had to get unstuck too. Years back, they looked at their whole system and they found the single constraint, the time it took for a customer to order at that crackly intercom. So what was their solution? They sent staff outside with tablets. Turns out, people decide what they want way faster when they're talking to a friendly human. This one little change didn't just speed up ordering, it let them manage the whole flow of cars. Genius. So, how do you find your bottleneck? Well, here is the absolute key question you have to ask yourself. Look at the big problem you're facing and find the one piece where you can honestly say this: if I fail to improve this one thing, none of my other improvements will even matter. That, right there, that's your bottleneck. Everything else is just a distraction. All right, now for our third fulcrum. And I gotta say, this one is my personal favorite because it's so backwards from how we usually think. Instead of being obsessed with what's broken, this strategy tells us to look for the things that are, for some reason, already working. We need to find the bright spots. So, what's a bright spot? It's a little moment of success that's hiding inside a bigger failure. Think about it. Maybe your whole sales team is struggling, but there's one person who's just crushing their numbers. Or maybe you're in a creative slump, but every now and then you have this one amazing session where the ideas just flow. Those are your bright spots.
The process here is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. First, you just find these rare moments of success. Then, you study them like a detective. What is different about what that one salesperson is doing? What were the exact conditions during that perfect writing session? Once you figure out the recipe, you rebuild your process to make those conditions happen all the time. You make success the new normal. So let's make this personal for a second. Think about your own work, your own goals. When have you performed surprisingly well, even when things were tough? What were the specific, concrete things that made that happen? Your way forward is probably hidden right there in that answer. Okay, so you've sketched your map, or you've found your bottleneck, or you've identified a bright spot. You've found your fulcrum. Great. But that boulder isn't going to move itself. The last and most critical step is to apply a concentrated burst of force. This isn't just about getting started. It's about a push so powerful that it creates its own momentum. Think of it like decluttering your house. You could try doing it for like 15 minutes a day for 6 months, but all that starting and stopping just creates friction, right? A much better way is to block off one whole Saturday, a focused 6-hour burst, and make huge, undeniable progress. That big win creates an energy and momentum that carries you through to the finish. It's the exact same idea with any reset. And there you have it. That's your toolkit for getting unstuck. See, the question is never if there's a better way. It's how you choose to look for it. Are you going to map the process to finally see the waste? Are you going to find that one bottleneck that unlocks everything? Or are you going to clone the success that's already happening? Look, at the end of the day, breaking through a plateau isn't about grinding harder with the same old tools. It's about stepping back, thinking differently, and finding a powerful new leverage point. So my question to you is, what's your fulcrum going to be?